Hi, I'm Barb Allen here with American Snippets. Today's guest is Bob Vincent, who has a really great story about his life as a first-generation American who grew up in this country with parents who felt strongly enough about the values of this country to bring their family here. And we're going to talk to him about what it was like growing up in that family as a first-generation American, building a successful business, Real Heroes Media, which you built yourself, ground up, to become one of the people in the industry who you give back through your business. So not only have you built a sustainable business for yourself, but you found a way to give back to the country that you yourself are first generation in, which a lot of people may take for granted. You know, people who are generation upon generation of being here, we just sort of take it for granted, right? And maybe we don't take the time to find that way to give back or work hard enough to realize everything that we could possibly realize in our lives. So we're really looking forward to talking to you, getting your story. I know you, firsthand from your work, from the work that you do to give back. You're very involved with Snowball Express, which is something that we talk about here often. Seems like this organization comes into a great many of our...
finished number 12 last month.
12 years on Snowball Express. So why don't you tell us a little bit, first off, about Real Heroes Media, the business you built, and why you built it.
Real Heroes Media. So we started off as simply as a video production company, and that was our main core business was actually doing online video marketing. And started off with a company was called Video Pilot 360, and got into the video business to do online video interactive marketing. And through my work and in the industry, I met a service member who had a very incredible story, who was a country musician ready to sign a record deal. Instead of signing his record deal, he signed up for the Marine Corps when September 11th happened, decided he wanted to serve his country and put his music career on hold. Unfortunately, his second tour, he was severely injured, breaking his back, where he was paralyzed from the waist down. And then through some medical advancements, they came up with a procedure that was able to work for him and help him. So 6 months later, they started the procedure. They were able to rebuild his vertebrae using a procedure called the kyphioplast. It worked for him. A year later, he walked out of the hospital and started playing music again. Huh. So through that, when we were working in Nashville, he lived in Nashville. So we would, when we were in Nashville filming, I would do whatever I could to help him after hearing his story and working with them to get some video content put together for him. And I went with him to a Wounded Warrior conference. It was in Orlando, Florida in 2008, so 10 years ago this year, so 10th anniversary now of working with veterans in the film business. So when I went to the conference, that was kind of an eye-opener for me, where I was there to do a documentary about Steven. Country Music Television wanted to tell his story on being a country musician who gave up his music career to serve, was injured, and then the story of him overcoming that injury to get back into the music business, and now he was going back overseas for his first tour. Huh. So we kind of migrated over the past 10 years, started off doing the interactive video marketing, got involved with this country musician, Stephen Cochran is his name, by the way. Great guy, great musician, great friend. And when I went to that conference, so that was an eye-opener for me. I had no idea, like I think a lot of people didn't know how many wounded we had, how many lost service members we've had, and then the families, that have been left behind that had all kinds of resources that were needed that organizations were providing, but some knew, some didn't, and there was all these stories that just weren't being told, and that's where I started filming and volunteering to do veteran programs with American Airlines, work with them, and then like you mentioned, Snowball Express, and so over the past 10 years, we went from doing video marketing to now still do video production commercials and all kinds of videos, but mainly now we're targeted in the nonprofit military veteran support.
So your background, you studied film production?
Not professionally. Professionally, I studied actually computers programming technology. Went to school at Purdue University. So I majored in computer programming technology and minored in telecommunications and networking. And after when I was in high school, though, I was a big film. I was going to go to film school. I love film, love doing videos. I used to have my home to myself when my parents were either working or out for afternoons where I had the house to myself for a few hours. And we used to make fake episodes of Cops. That's when Cops first came out.
So that was how you just turned your hobby and your passion, and
we
you
turned
took
it
it.
into a crime scene or a investigative scene or whatever the script happened to be for the week.
And
So
then
I
you
always
took
loved to
that
have passion for
passion.
doing
I'm sorry.
film.
Yeah, and you
Was
took that passion and you lent it
Yeah.
towards the other passion.
So I
that's
went
cool.
to college. I got accepted at Purdue, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I have family in Europe, and my cousin was getting his PhD at the time, and I took a introduction to HTML programming course and thought it was really cool how I can design a website here, and in seconds he's looking at it halfway around the world. So I kind of went into computers, did that for a while, designed software for Intel, for Federal Mogul, a car manufacturing facility. And it was actually September 11th I was graduating that fall, and September 11th was my recruiting day. I had 12 interviews with 12 of the biggest companies in the country, from IBM to Intel, who I was already working for as a contractor, who hired me after I worked as an intern, and then they hired me to work as a contractor until I graduated and could come back full time. But then September 11th, that was the day. I was on my way, suit and tie, ready to go pick out my dream job, graduating college, 100% placement, one of the top degrees in the country for computer science and programming. And that's when September 11th. So I unfortunately lost my contract with Intel and graduated that December, and I didn't have a job. And it's kind of that's a story by itself, what led me to where I'm at today. But because of that, I ended up working at Best Buy, where I worked when I was in high school, then ended up meeting a pilot for American Airlines who flew me to Dallas, Texas to look at the pilots union and help them with their IT needs, which then led me to starting my video company, which was a passion. That's something I always went back to. I wanted to do. After 10 years in the IT industry, I decided, I'm going to buy a camera. I had two good friends of mine that I known that were wanting to start this company. So I January 2008, 10 years ago this month, I walked away from the corporate IT world and started a video production company. I went and bought a video camera and started making videos.
So this is actually something that we're finding to be a common theme almost in so many people that we meet and talk to who have gone into their worlds and accomplished something really pretty exceptional. A lot of them seem to have been on one path, and then something significant happened in their life and they were faced with a decision. And, either I go full on into this or I stay the sort of tried and true path. And it seems like it is a recurring theme. People, you just take that leap and you go all in. And what would you say to people then who are maybe contemplating making that? I mean, it's easy to say go for it and it will be okay, but it's a struggle.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I would say it hasn't been easy. It's easy to say,
right?
But it's definitely been hard. I mean, it's when I was fortunate when I first walked away with this technology we were developing, this online interactive technology. That country musician I mentioned, Steven, I was doing some free videos for him and helping him do what I could. And we did a video for MySpace. We're developing, this when MySpace was still a big thing. And we developed this interactive video for MySpace. And 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from Disney and from Rascal Flatts, their marketing director. And they asked me if I can come to Nashville and do these videos in Nashville. And they really liked the idea. They loved how they worked and and next thing you know, I was working for Disney and Rascal Flatts and one of the biggest names in country music. And I haven't been in the business for 6 months. But
that never would have happened if you hadn't just trusted yourself and made that leap. So it was a blessing. And then that was that year that I went to that veteran conference. And then, with the work through Disney and, I was blessed in the way of, the money we were making and financially we were doing very well. And that gave me the ability to then go and help and work with Snowball Express and Skyball and a lot of the Gary Sinise Foundation. I work a lot with Gary and his band, Lieutenant Dan Band. Who just took Snowball in under his wing.
And the reason, when I went to that first event, and you mentioned my background. So I am a first generation American.
Yeah.
I was born here. My grandfather, unfortunately, he died in a prison camp in Siberia during World War II. My grandmother, she wasn't taken to a camp, but my grandmother's Jewish, and a majority of her family were either victims or also had to escape from the German occupation in Hungary. My family's from Budapest, Hungary, if I haven't mentioned that. And my dad was 8 years old when his dad was taken in 1945 at the end of World War II. And, in 1956, Hungary tried to regain their independence, and they had a revolution, a Hungarian Revolution, where they tried to regain their freedoms that they wanted to, just like Americans had, and they didn't want to be a part of the communist regime and be under communist rule with Russia, and unfortunately it turned violent, and the Russians were executing anybody that put up a resistance. So my dad was at work one day, and they showed up at his work to get him, and his buddies gave him a heads up that these soldiers are here looking for you, and he snuck out the back door at 20 years old. He crawled across the border into Austria. After about 8 or 9 hours of sitting in a ditch in the border against a river, he had a clearing to get across and made it. And first thing he did when he got here was he enlisted in the army because he wanted to serve and give back. So
he wasn't married when he came here.
No, he wasn't married.
Okay.
No. He wasn't married. He was an only child.
Yeah.
So he was 8 years old when his dad was taken, and he was just him and his mom. And he couldn't even say bye to his mom. He had to go.
He had to just go like that.
Go or stay, and who knows what would have happened. So so he left, and he came here. He served in the army. He went back to Hungary after he changed our last name, and he became an American citizen by then. Eisenhower was president at the time and was giving anybody citizenship and asylum who escaped. It was, I think, the Refugee Act of 1956, the Hungarian Refugee Act that he enacted to allow Hungarians to come to America. But my dad went back, met my mom, married her, brought her out here, and my mom's side of the family all stayed behind. And my dad still had his mom and some of his relatives as well. So I was born here, but I was 6 months old the first time I went back to Hungary. Right. And we used to go every summer, where we would spend the summers. As soon as school ended here, we went there, and we would take 8 suitcases filled with shampoo and toilet paper and just
because
things you took for granted. They don't have that.
And
I realized how fortunate I was when I saw the soldiers in the streets with machine guns. And I got clotheslined once when I was 10 years old running through the airport because I was running. And that's how the soldiers told you don't run. They knocked the wind out, picked you up by the shirt and screamed at you in Russian because you were running. It was things that you just don't even think about of what it would be like to not be able to say what you want to say, or if you say the wrong thing, go to jail and have literally people monitoring and watching everything you do, say, and think and feel, and that you can't even go buy a normal roll of toilet paper at the store. And so I realized that growing up how fortunate I was. And
so did your dad, would he tell stories of those days to you growing up, or was it just not talked about?
Not until I started asking about them. He never really got into it until I started. When I was growing up and started realizing, when I was young, and we never talked about it, just we went to Hungary, took their things. We never really made a big deal out of what else was going on. I think that Russian soldier grabbing me in the airport when I was running, and the way he grabbed me and had his machine gun on his side and was screaming at me. I think that was my big eye opener as a kid, as far as things are a little bit different here. And and then can you imagine
that happening here? Can you imagine a 10-year-old boy running around and a police officer or law enforcement clotheslining the 10-year-old kid for running?
A little kid, and literally pick him up by the shirt. It was a moment. Talking to mom, my mom had a little bit of a panic attack too. But no, so I grew, we have since, I've done a lot of interviews. My grandmother's going to be 99 years old, my adoptive grandmother. I have a very large adoptive Hungarian family here in the States, in Florida and in Chicago, all who immigrated here with my mom and dad at the same time, then became family. So I call them grandma, grandpas, uncles, cousins, aunts, uncles. But there's no blood relation, but we have a very big family here. And then I still have my immediate family back in Hungary. So I still was just there last October for a few weeks and still keep the connection, speak the language fluently. But growing up and realizing what I had when I came home and how fortunate I was to be an American and to have the freedoms we have. And so, when I went to that event, that changed my life. I walked into that room and started meeting these guys and gals and hearing their stories. And all I can think about is, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them and those that defend our country and take the oath to keep those freedoms alive today, and make sure that they never forget, and that there's always someone there to make sure that we'll have that and that we don't have to worry about it.
So you use the work that you do at your company. You will then go you'll create documentaries and videos for military nonprofits, or, explain a little bit what you do, how
Okay,
you use your company to
so it
support
started
this.
as just doing videos. Whenever if they needed help, there was an event, I would either do a highlight video, or if they needed a promotional video, I have a green screen mobile studio. I would bring and film PSAs with Gary Sinise or Tony Orlando or whoever they're endorsing, person that was endorsing the organization. Terry Fader, we do a lot of work with him. Chef Robert Irvine, of course, Tony Orlando, Gary. So if they needed help, I'd do PSAs. Then the events themselves. The first year I got involved with Snowball, I was in Nashville and got a call that Lee Greenwood was going to be singing for all the kids at the Nashville airport. And I didn't know anything about Snowball. I didn't know what it was about. The friend of mine who was involved knew that I was in Nashville working with Disney at the time, and I was actually supposed to fly home the day before. And I told them, if you guys give me a ride home, I'll come, because they didn't have anybody to take pictures or do any video. Huh. So they asked me if I would come help, and I was like, of course. Yeah, I mean, Lee Greenwood, when that song came out, and it's God Bless the USA, my dad would play it every day. He still has the record at home.
Nice.
And he was one of his favorite songs, and he would always tell me, like, this is what this country's about. But, he's very patriotic man as well. If you ever get to meet him, he's, made sure we knew how fortunate we were to live here, too, and always told us about, to always respect those, obviously, who do defend our country. And so that was my dad's favorite song, too, when it came out, and he played all the time. So I went, filmed, and that was a moment. Filming there, Lee had a moment. He was walking around asking the kids what they wanted for Christmas, and he went up to one little girl, and she said her daddy.
Yeah.
And I could hear had a microphone on, and I can hear what he was saying through my monitors, and he just hugged that girl and told her, "No, you're going to go on this trip. You're going to have a great time." And he had a nice, intimate talk with her, but she was upset. She had just lost her dad a few months before, and
it's tough.
And they got her on the trip, and I got on that charter flight, and 5 minutes into the flight, she was helping with the drink service, serving drinks. She asked me, "Oh, what do you want to drink?" And she was already having fun. And when I got back to Dallas, I was just going to go home, and then they asked me, like, "Hey, is there any way you can stay and help us get some video?" It was the first year I was in Dallas. It was kind of you were probably there.
I was there.
So it was everyone was split between a bunch of hotels, and it was the first year here in a new location, and they needed help with video and production. So I stayed, and it changed my life. And just seeing those kids and meeting the families and the impact it was making for them was. So I started producing videos for Snowball Express, for example, where now every year we film, we do a highlight video. We've grown from not just doing the videos, but some of the signage and the badging and the marketing material and some other graphics and stuff like that as well.
So when people will say things like we'll see stories a lot and hear a lot, there's kind of an undertone of malcontent in the country, right? People saying the American dream is dead, and just arguing and all this. Like, what would you say to somebody if they walked up to you and said, the American dream is just crap. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. It cannot be done. What would you say to them?
Completely wrong. Just don't expect it for nothing. That's what I tell them. That's one day. One of my goals and dreams is to do something. I won't say what, but something to remind. Some things I want to be able to get my story out there, what I've been through, and let people know that it's the American dream. The one thing that people. I think that people expecting something for nothing.
Yeah.
And the American dream is very much alive. It's not easy. It's hard sometimes. It's not. I've been through this last 10 years. I've had very, very dark, low days, and not knowing how I'm going to survive another month, or business was up and down, and being in your own business, I've learned the hard way. There's so many things, my God, mistakes I've made and things that I've done that put me back. You take 2 steps forward and you take 10 steps back, and but if you're persistent and if you work hard, that's what's great about this country is there's nothing you can't do. You just got to do it.
Can you think of one mistake maybe that you made that had a significant impact but turned into a valuable lesson?
Wow.
Pick anyone.
Well, there's a big one. I did get involved. This was my first an individual that was using let me get into details on how much of it, but someone who was using a foundation I was working with very closely as someone he was partnered with, and had this it has to do with auto racing, and it had a racing team that that was going to run a campaign saluting our veterans and donating to a foundation I work with, and had all these presentations and things that this foundation was on board, that all these plans and all these events that were happening. And I spent a lot of time and a lot of money working with them, thinking that we're going to be able to get in the advertising side of the business for the racing industry, which obviously there's a lot of money in advertising and production, but then to be able to take those advertising dollars and apply them to nonprofits, the military nonprofits. So for me, I thought the best of both my worlds were finally coming together, where I had my commercial side for my production business that I could, do well and grow my business in size and financially and do more, but at the same time, stay with the nonprofits and be able to donate more to them through this whole opportunity that came about.
Right.
Tried to verify it. I thought it was a real deal, and turned out to be a complete hoax. When I finally, things started, the peels of the onion started coming unraveled, and it was very surprising. I took that person to meetings with me where I never would have thought a million years this person would actually go to a meeting when what they're saying wasn't even true, with somebody who could call them on it, and they did, and so I learned you can't always believe everything everyone tells you, and you got to always trust but verify. That was a hard lesson I learned.
That is a good.
So I trusted and didn't, and thought I verified, but didn't verify enough. And and the day when I brought up, I was like, "Hey, aren't you doing this thing on September, whatever the date was that this whole event was planned around?" And they're like, "What is?" And as soon as they said, "What event?" I was like, "Oh God, there is no event." There was no. I mean, it was all a hoax. The whole thing was a guy, Chinese military, who may or may not have even been a Marine. He was supposedly a retired Marine that was in the race car business. And there's definitely people when they hear the word race car will laugh, because it was definitely one that I got very deep involved in and overtaken by. Yeah. And unfortunately, it bit me bad. But I learned the hard way.
So now you're just a little more careful about the people.
Very careful.
You haven't stopped trusting. You just verify more.
Just verify. Okay. Yeah, verify. And sometimes even verifying is hard. I mean, I've been down the road. It's amazing the people that are out there that try to take advantage of anything they can. And
you have to learn to not worry about maybe upsetting them. Like, well, I don't want to upset this person, but if they're valid and they're legitimate, they're going to respect the fact that you're asking questions and that you're trying to verify. And that's going to show them that you're legit too. But that's a hard lesson to learn, especially if you're raised to be like polite and nice, respectful, and not upset people, or you're somebody who just doesn't like confrontation, shies away from confrontation. It's hard to learn to go up and do that. And I feel your pain there. I had a couple of those mistakes myself, and some of them cost me big, but they're learning, once you get through them, it makes you a little grittier. Yeah, it
does, but it hurt. Yeah, that was hard. And get everything in writing. That was the other hard thing I had to learn. I mean, I'm always like you said, I was growing up that, words are bond, and, if we discuss something, we say we're going to do something, let's do it. But I've been burned numerous times where people I thought I could trust, where we made an agreement to do something and I did my part, and then they didn't show up on their part. And it's like, it wasn't in writing. Yep. And it's like, really, we had to, what happened to just trusting people? And, like now everyone's so contracted, like, we got to have it in writing, and we got to have a contract. And I even working with the military and the nonprofit world,
that's cutthroat.
Sometimes it's so fast paced where you just want to do it. It's like, oh my God, we got this. Let's just get it done. Let's go. Yeah. And then it's like,
nope, that's that's a business. The nonprofit world is a business too.
That's a business. It is.
They're fierce. All right. Last question here. Ready? You ready to think?
Oh,
what would you say if you could reach back in time, say something to 22-year-old Bob Vincent? What would you tell him?
Wow. How much time do I got to think?
I know.
What would I say to 22-year-old Bob Vincent?
Yeah.
Man. Trying to think what I was doing when I was 20. I was still in college. I was in college. Man, Barbara, that's a good question.
I know.
It's so hard to say. It's,
one piece of advice you would give him.
Follow your dreams. Just do what don't be afraid. I mean, I almost tell them do what I did. I don't know. Like in a way, like I said, it hasn't been easy. It's been difficult.
Yeah.
But I've been blessed too with where I'm at and the people I've gotten to work with and the things I've been able to do. And it's like I said, it's been hard. It hasn't been easy. It's been a struggle. But I would tell them just follow your heart. Follow your dreams.
Stay with it.
It's easy to. Part of me would want to tell them, you know what, keep the corporate job and the 401k and insurance and do build a family and do the typical American dream things, or get married, have kids, have a house, have a family, which I kind of passed all. Well, that's not all past, but instead of doing all that, spent the last 20 years between IT and now this stuff for 10 years, which definitely takes a lot of time away. That's a good question. I tell them just follow your dreams. Just stick with it. Again, I don't know if I'd change anything. And like I said, everything, I feel like, where I'm at, what I'm doing, I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I was here for a purpose and a reason. And, going back through the last 10 years of all these videos we've produced and all these events we've done, and both the corporate and the nonprofit side, mainly nonprofit, it's definitely struck a chord in my heart. And it's been a blessing. And one of my proudest things I've ever done is what I've been able to do to help and continue to and look forward to do, I hope, for a long time.
All right. So if people want to find out about the work you do or some of the organizations that you support, where can we send them?
Right now it goes to my Vimeo page. I'll give you my website. So it's Reel, and it's Reel is REEL, as in a production reel, realheroesmedia.com. Right now it'll forward you to my Vimeo page, which I have all my videos uploaded. You can see from the last 10 years. My contact information's on there. It's bob.vincent@realheroesmedia.com.
Okay.
But if you just go to my website, I'll take you to my Vimeo. You can watch videos. You can email me. Facebook, Real Heroes Media.
If someone has a story maybe that they want some advice or guidance getting out, are you game to field questions?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Send me a message to my Facebook page or Real Heroes Media, or
awesome.
Email me. You can email me. Sure. Love to. Any advice I can give. I'm humbled that I've in a position where I can, provide advice and guidance and, and what I've been through to help others. If I can, I'd be honored to.
Great.
To try and avoid some of the things that I've been through.
Bob, thank you so much for being back on American Snippets. This is our take 2 since we had technical difficulties the first time around. So thank you for giving it another go.
Thank you, Barbara.
And thank you for sharing the story.